Democratic National Committee. I'm also a member of the United States House of Representatives representing Florida's 23rd Congressional District in South Florida. Proudly so. And good afternoon and welcome to Cleveland for the first Republican presidential primary debate. This is certainly an ironic and cynical choice of a date and location for the Republicans to hold this debate because today is the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. It's ironic considering the Republican candidates' zealous efforts to restrict access to the ballot box over the last 5 years. And cynical because we're in Ohio, a clear example of a state that has benefited from the middle-class economics of President Obama and Democrats since the Great Recession, but has been held back from greater success by a Republican governor who puts the needs of the wealthy and his Wall Street friends ahead of hard-working Ohio families. Buckle up, Cleveland. You're in for an interesting ride. From the debate tonight to the GOP convention in 11 months, the good people of the Forest City are going to get an up-close and personal look at the Republican Party of today, and I'm confident when they get a close look that they won't like what they see. I'm really thrilled to be joined today by ODP Engagement Chair Nina Turner, Ohio Democratic Party Chair David Pepper, and my colleagues and friends, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, Congressman Tim Ryan, and they're going to talk more about the Republican record and what a Republican president would mean for voting rights and for the people of Ohio. I know there are a number of state and local leaders who have joined us and activists today as well, and we're really glad to have them and have their presence and their activism and their involvement. Now, for starters, allow me to set the stage on the difference in priorities between the Republican and Democratic parties. Leading up to the debate, most of the talk has focused on who was going to make it onto the debate stage tonight. But it really doesn't matter which Republicans are up there because they are all the same. All of the Republicans running for president in 2016 are singing off the same song sheet and working from the same old, tired Republican playbook. And Medicare as we know it? Check. Do nothing to address climate change? Check. Do nothing to ensure equal pay or a living wage? Check and check. Cut taxes for the wealthy? I mean, give me a break already. There are two candidates from Florida with whom I, of course, am most familiar, Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush. Senator Rubio likes to say that he's a new leader with fresh ideas, but he's really been nothing more of a follower through the years, peddling failed Republican policies over and over again. He defends tax loopholes and cuts for the wealthy and corporations, but has supported raising taxes and fees on the middle class. And we know, because we've gotten a really good preview, what another Bush presidency would mean for the economy and for our nation, because we've seen it before. Recently, Jeb Bush shared his plan for economic growth. And guess what it is? He actually said that he thinks American workers should work longer hours. I wonder how many Ohioans think that they aren't working harder or long enough. Just this week, he also suggested that we're spending too much on women's health. He also said that he wants to phase out Medicare. How timely, since just last week we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the sacred promise between America and its seniors, the program that is Medicare. Shame on him for such a cruel policy, having represented a state with the most senior citizens in the country. These policies show just how out of touch Republicans are on the issues that matter to middle-class families. They don't have any new ideas for moving our country forward. They want to turn back the clock to the failed policies of the past. Now, today might be the first time that we see them all together debating on the stage. Oops, that's right, they're not going to be all together. But anyone who's been paying attention the last few years knows what they'll say. We don't actually have to have a debate because we could probably write the whole script for you or for them. We know where they stand, and we know exactly who they're fighting for. Democrats are fighting for the middle class and those who are still struggling to get there. 64 straight months of private sector job growth is proof that democratic middle-class economics works. But Republicans want to go back to trickle-down economic policies that have failed over and over again in the past. They are only concerned with people who are already at the top. And that is the difference in priorities which viewers will see tonight. So let me stop there because we'll have plenty of opportunity to answer questions after each of our speakers comes up to the podium. And I want to introduce a friend of mine, a leader, a strong voice, and an outspoken, committed, passionate advocate for voting rights on matters of equality and justice as well, former state senator and Ohio Democratic Party chairwoman for engagement, Nina Turner. Senator?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to see you. You as well. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to do some truth-telling when it comes to the GOP presidential candidates. As we know, Republicans aren't just holding their first debate in Cleveland, they'll be back in this beautiful city for their 2016 convention next year. Cleveland's African American community has a long, proud history. We were the first U.S. city to elect an African American mayor, the late Carl B. Stokes. Republicans have ignored our communities for years, but yet they have this nice little mantra, committed to community. They still don't get it. They can't win over new voters by changing the tone of their message. They need to change the content of their message, their policies, and their actions toward our community. I don't know if any Republican tonight will finally do what is right and stand up for voting rights. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous when I saw the tweet go out from the RNC that said, "Today we honor the sacrifices and accomplishments and the memories of those who pushed for the Voting Rights Act." Seriously, I am sure that the freedom fighters of the 60s, those who have gone on and those who are with us today, are not enjoying that irony. If they really, really, really want to honor the sacrifices of those who gave of their blood, their sweat, their tears, and their livelihood when it comes to access to the ballot box, they would push the new and improved Voting Rights Act that is in the Congress right now, and they would stop suppressing the vote throughout states throughout this country. And right here in the great state of Ohio, that has happened as well. So again, the empty rhetoric of them being committed to community is very hollow. These Republican candidates have been obsessed with worrying about being left out off of the debate stage, as the chairwoman has talked about, but they don't care about taking away access to the ballot box. And it should be lost on no one that people who run for office for a living would have the pure, unadulterated gall to try to suppress the vote, yet they come to the great city of Cleveland, the great swing state of Ohio, and debate. Let's look at Wisconsin. Not only did they reduce early voting and impose new restrictive voter ID laws, Governor Scott Walker decided he wanted to fundraise off of that. We know right here in this room, in the state of Ohio and all across the country, that most of these voter suppression laws have a disproportionate impact on African Americans, Hispanics, and other communities of color, women, students, and the poor. But you know, this is all a part of the Republican calculation, because they live by the creed, if we can't cheat them, if we can't beat them, we cheat them. And they have done that through redistricting and also by suppressing the vote. So again, it rings hollow that they would put out any tweet or any message about being supportive of the folks who sacrificed their lives for voting. This is no way to move a democracy forward. The more people who participate in a democracy, the better it is. But the Republican candidates for president, they just don't get it. And now it is my pleasure to turn things over to my partner in all things good, Ohio Democratic Party Chairman David Pepper.
Thank you. Thank you, Nina. Welcome to Chairwoman. We're honored to have you in Ohio, and thank you. Welcome to Ohio for those of you who are not from here. We are proud to be here today, and I want to talk a little bit about our values as a party and our values as Ohioans, because it's something that I don't think you'll hear much of tonight, or at least see in action for sure. You know, we believe that our nation, our democracy, are strongest when more people participate, as Senator Turner just described. We are proud to be a party of inclusion, of empowerment, of expanded opportunity. We're the party that believes in giving everyone a fighting chance economically, to get into the middle class and stay there and not go backwards. These are also the values of Ohio families, families nationwide, but we're proud in our state to be a big, bold, diverse state. And one reason we think it's great that we are the swing state is because our diversity so well represents the diversity of our country. And that also again reflects our democratic values. And we're watching the other party really struggle. You'll see it tonight. Because they don't embrace the diversity in the way we do. I think, as others have said, they struggle to broaden their base. They struggle to get to 50%. And why is that, and what's the contrast? It's because we're the party, and we're proud to have played a role. We're the party that believes in marriage equality and fought to make it happen. And we were proud, our Ohio Democratic Party, to file a brief supporting Jim Obergefell and making the difference we made there. We are the party fighting for that fighting chance economically. We're the party fighting to make sure that education is more affordable. We strongly support President Obama's plan to make 2 years of community college free for responsible students. Republican senators, on the other hand, have voted against plans to allow Americans to refinance their student loans. We're the party of the Affordable Care Act. We're the party proud to have stood with it. And we have now seen 2 Supreme Court decisions in favor of keeping it going. That saved hundreds of thousands of Ohioans their health care just the other week. Survived more than 50 votes in Congress. Obviously, we're seeing the other side just continue to plug away to try and stop a program that's gained more than 16 million Americans in terms of their health care. We're the party that's for comprehensive immigration reform. That is not what you're going to hear about tonight at the debate. We've been a key state in recent elections. We know we'll be a key state this year. And we're proud that the values that we hold as a party are the same values we know that Ohioans hold. And you won't be hearing any of that message tonight, but that's what you'll be hearing from us for the next year and a half. With that, let me proudly introduce the Dean of our Ohio Congressional Delegation. There is no finer champion of Ohio, our values, our people, than the great Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur. Welcome, Marcy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me welcome the chair of the Democratic National Committee, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who has to travel our country. Thank you so much for coming to Ohio today. To our esteemed chair and chair of engagement, as well as my wonderful colleague, Congressman Tim Ryan. Thank you all for traveling here today. I want to thank Chairman Stuart Garson, the chairman of the Cuyahoga Democratic Party, who's in the room with us today. Thank you for being with us. And a welcome to all. I dedicate my remarks today, which will be brief, in hopes that Congressman Louis Stokes, who had served as Dean of our delegation for many years, is listening to these comments today and will be able to listen to the debate tonight in the great American tradition. My job is to welcome you to Ohio and to tell you a little bit about the Ohio story. The name Ohio means many rivers, and I guess one can take that going back ecologically, but one can also take it demographically and economically. You have come to one of the most representative states in the Union. Though we are number 22 in the primary lineup, I wish we were number 1, because we believe we are more representative of the country. Thank you for coming to Destination Cleveland, a community that is a free enterprise community. It is not a government center. It doesn't trade in other people's wealth. It builds that wealth with hard work and ingenuity, and it has done that for decades and generations. My job is to tell you a little bit about what it's been like to live in Ohio under a Republican governor named John Kasich, who barely squeezed on the stage tonight, I guess. But it's crucial that you understand what Ohio is facing under his governorship, because it's emblematic of what all of the candidates on the Republican side of the aisle would do as president. Each of the Republican candidates shares the same adherence to trickle-down economics and fealty to the 1%, not the 99%. In fact, some of them tonight have even removed the middlemen that used to do their bidding, and they're running themselves. They're part of the 1%, and we will see what that really looks like. The American people will follow it. We know that the Kasich governorship has hurt the people of Ohio and the community in which you are sitting today and standing. Those same policies that have been enacted here would hurt Americans nationwide if any one of these candidates became president. Scott Walker isn't the only Republican who ferociously targeted public workers, police, firefighters, teachers. The effort by Governor Kasich to take away their legal rights to defend their work contract was resoundingly defeated by the voters of this state. This is a state that respects the power of the law in defense of hard-earned labor rights. If you look at 2008 and the recession that hit this region terribly hard, it was the Democrats that refinanced the automotive industry of this country and helped to lift Ohio back from the mat as companies were shuttering their doors and hundreds of thousands of people faced unemployment. The vote in Congress on that important measure, 205 Democrats supported the refinancing of the automotive industry. The vast majority of Republicans, back then, 150 voted no, including every Ohio Republican, but for one, Steve LaTourette, who then retired, and another who didn't vote and walked off the floor. Democrats voted to refinance this lodestar industry. You are in one of the most important defense industrial manufacturing regions of this country. We understand what it takes to build America in a free enterprise economy in a world that has closed markets and where our people have taken it in the gut for so many years, so unfairly. We need a president of this country who understands what work is all about and what it takes to succeed in today's global marketplace. One of the other things that is important for you to know, when we voted in order to help restore America's economy, and as the chairwoman said, over 60 straight months, 64 straight months of job growth, it wasn't very easy. In this part of America, we're the 5th largest rail center in the country, but we have a problem. If you try to take Amtrak, our passenger service, and maybe some of you got here that way, I hope you arrived on time, what we have trouble with is that our freight rail and passenger rail compete. We voted for $400 million to come to Ohio to modernize our rail system with a major facility here in Cleveland connecting us to Pittsburgh and Chicago and separating passenger and freight. The governor of this state turned the money back and it went to other states. That harmed this part of Ohio so into the future. And other corridors are modernizing it, and we are still trying to pull ourselves forward. Governor Kasich signed into law tax cuts which benefit, guess what, the top 5% of earners, as he cut millions and millions and millions of dollars to local governments, including this one. And what you're finding around Ohio is local communities having to raise taxes to pay for schools, trying to figure out how in heaven's name, as you're crawling out of that major recession, are you able to repair your bridges, your infrastructure? We've got a crisis in Lake Erie right now because of algal blooms with climate change. And we have water systems that are very much at risk. Where's the money supposed to come from to give us additional water system inlets in the lake and also help us repair what we need to repair in order to protect the public health and to take care of the watersheds that are causing these difficulties? I hope you don't hit any big potholes while you're here in Cleveland, but if you do, thank a Republican. Because that surface transportation bill sits in Washington and with its 34th extension for, 2 months, 3 months, what an embarrassment to the country. One of the most important jobs bills we could pass. Now, you will see something happening here in Ohio with the $1.8 billion in funding for public schools that this governor cut, forcing all kinds of layoffs and problems in local school systems. But something interesting has happened. The director of the charter school enterprise and the compilation of test scores in Ohio has just resigned, and for falsifying the test scores in the private schools. And I think investigations are beginning to proceed on that. But it's an example of what is happening in this state that are the wrong priorities for Ohio families and they're wrong for America. We are part of a party that wants to drive America forward and not elect any candidate who's out of touch or out of date. Thank you so much for coming here today, and I would like to now introduce my very intelligent and dashing colleague from the greater Youngstown district, whose future is unlimited, Congressman Tim Ryan.
Dashing. I'm going to yield my time back to Marcy. Thank you very much. I'm batting cleanup here, and I want to first off by starting with Chairwoman Wasserman Schultz, who was a dear friend of mine, and we started back with a group called the 30 30-somethings, we would go to the House floor. Then Leader Pelosi charged us with going to